This is the VOA Special English Education Report. An old problem is getting new attention in the United States: bullying. Recent cases included the tragic case of a 15-year-old girl whose family moved from Ireland. Phoebe Prince hanged herself in Massachusetts in January following months of bullying. Her parents criticized her school for failing to protect her. Officials have brought criminal charges against several teenagers. Judy Kuczynski is president of an anti-bullying group called Bully Police USA. Her daughter Tina was the victim of severe bullying starting in middle school in the state of Minnesota. Judy Kuczynski says her daughter was a very outgoing child, very involved in all kinds of things, and had lots of friends. But over a period of time, her grades fell completely. She developed health problems. She couldn't sleep. She wasn't eating. She had terrible stomach pains and started grinding her teeth at night. And she did not want to go to school. Bullying is defined as negative behavior repeated over time against the same person. It can involve physical violence, or it can be verbal, for example, insults or threats. Spreading lies about someone or excluding a person from a group is known as social or relational bullying. And now there is cyberbullying, which uses the internet, email, or text messages. It has easy appeal for the bully because it does not involve face-to-face contact, and it can be done at any time. The first serious research studies into bullying were done in Norway in the late 1970s. The latest government study in the United States was released last year. It found that about 1/3 of students aged 12 to 18 were bullied at school. Examples included being made fun of, pushed, spit on, threatened, or excluded from activities. Some students had their property damaged. About 4% reported being the victims of cyberbullying. The study took place in 2007. Susan Swearer is a psychologist at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and co-director of the Bullying Research Network. She says schools should treat bullying as a mental health problem to get bullies and victims the help they need. She says bullying is connected to depression, anxiety, and antisocial behavior, and bullies are often victims themselves. What can be done to prevent bullying? That will be our subject next week. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report.
I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Education Report. Americans celebrated the Thanksgiving holiday on November 25th. They gathered with family and friends to share a meal. Some celebrated the holiday by telling what they are most thankful for. This holiday season, a group of student athletes in Woodburn, Oregon, has given its community something to be thankful for. The Woodburn High School boys soccer team has reached the state soccer championship playoffs for 25 straight seasons. But the Bulldogs had never won the state championship until this year. Their victory in November also represents a win for their mostly Hispanic hometown. Writer Steve Wilson spent a year recording the successes and problems of the team. He wrote a book called The Boys from Little Mexico, a season chasing the American dream. It tells about a community struggling with issues such as immigration and cultural changes. Migrant farm workers from Mexico started coming to Woodburn, Oregon about 50 years ago. Many of the workers stayed and made the town their home. So the town became known as Little Mexico. Steve Wilson thinks the Woodburn boys soccer team's continued hard work and effort to win the state championship is similar to their cultural experiences. Like many Mexican Americans, the boys on the Woodburn team faced major problems. They include poverty, a language barrier, and immigration issues. Mr. Wilson wondered if those challenges were preventing the team from reaching its goal of winning a state championship. So he decided to follow the team for an entire season. He got to know the players, coaches, and supporters. One of the players he writes about in the book is Martin Maldonado Cortez. Martin says he and the other boys on the team knew that Woodburn had a bad image. The town has a population of only 22,000 people, but it faces many of the same problems found in large cities. These include gang violence and illegal drugs. He says when the team went to play other schools, the people did not act friendly toward them. Martin says his coaches told him to show pride in his culture. They told him to make an effort to be successful in life, and not just on the field. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Our programs are online with transcripts and MP3 files at voaspecialenglish.com. And you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. In May, an international conference took place in Dakar, Senegal, to find new ways to get and keep girls in school. The United Nations Children's Fund says nearly 72 million children were not in school in 2007. More than half are girls, and more than 2/3 are in sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and West Asia. School attendance has improved in many areas, but the head of UNICEF, Anthony Lake, says, unless we all work harder, there may still be 56 million children out of school in 2015. He says progress and economic development depend on educating girls as well as boys. Educated girls are also at lower risk of violence, abuse, and diseases like HIV/AIDS. The UN Girls Education Initiative organized the meeting of 200 scholars, aid workers, and government officials from 22 countries. The initiative was launched in Dakar 10 years ago. The aim is to bring primary school education to all girls and boys worldwide by 2015. In Senegal, the number of public schools has doubled in the last 10 years. But UNICEF's Anthony Lake said schools still lack gender equality. He said girls in one Dakar school told him about a lack of bathrooms and textbooks for them and bullying from boys. The conference centered on three main problems to getting and keeping girls in school: violence, poverty, and poor quality education. Anne Therese Ndongjata is Education Director for UNESCO in Africa. She says donors are giving a lot of resources and civil society groups are working on access to education. The UNESCO official says schools need to modernize and improve what they teach and how they teach it. For example, she says schools should teach African children in their native languages, not just in English or French. To stay in school, experts say children must consider their education useful, and so must their parents. May Rihani from the Global Advisory Committee of the UN Girls Initiative gave an example from a life skills program in Mali. One lesson is about diarrhea. The idea is for children to go tell their mother what they learned. May Rihani says the mother would recognize that this education is important to her and to her family and would want the child to continue to go to school. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Kid Pan Alley is a nonprofit organization that holds songwriting workshops for students across the United States. The organization recently visited a school in the Anacostia area of Washington, D.C. The children presented a concert with the help of songwriter and recording artist Paul Reisler. He established Kid Pan Alley in 1999 and has worked with more than 35,000 students and produced more than 2,200 songs since that time. He says the power of music can teach children skills they might not learn in school. He believes the American educational system is focused too much on standardized tests to measure success. But Paul Reisler says we now live in a creative economy. He says his group is trying to inspire children to be creative. At Orr Elementary School in Anacostia, 95% of students come from poor families. Marlon Ray is the school's dean of students. He says some of the children have difficult lives. But he says these kids still want to strive for greatness. Jonna Turner is director of programs at the school. She says the 4th and 5th grade students are often focused on more than school. They can be important helpers for their families. They make sure food is ready when they come home and do other tasks. Yet, students are often influenced by what happens around them. A shooting took place in April directly in front of the school. Although no one was injured, the event affected the whole community. Still, Orr Elementary School has a positive, hopeful atmosphere. Marlon Ray says the workshop and concert made possible by Kid Pan Alley created good memories that will last for years. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Some women's prisons in the United States offer classes for college credit. But when the prisoners are released, they may not have much chance to continue their education. In 2000, a woman named Barbara Martinsons started a program to help these former prisoners. She established the College and Community Fellowship. Ms. Martinsons taught at Manhattan Marymount College in New York City. She has also taught college courses at a women's prison in New York State. The College and Community Fellowship provides advice to former prisoners. It also helps them gain admission to college. That process can be very difficult for anyone, let alone a person with a prison record. The group also provides financial aid to members attending college. Members of the College and Community Fellowship are called CCF Fellows. Some have earned not only college degrees, but master's degrees and a doctorate. Selena Fulford has already earned one master's degree and is working on her second. She is now an adjunct professor at the College of New Rochelle in New York State. About 70% of those in the program work full-time while studying. Nationally, 1/3 of women who have been in prison are later sent back for committing other crimes or violating the terms of their release. By comparison, almost none of the CCF fellows has been sent back behind bars. The Reverend Vivian Nixon, a minister, heads the College and Community Fellowship. She once spent time in prison for falsifying documents. She says the group helps people reclaim the goals they had for their lives before going to jail. You don't have to just accept any job at a fast food restaurant or cleaning up a hotel or cleaning up the streets, she says. As she puts it, you can still have desires and goals, and we are going to help you meet those desires and goals. About 270 people are in the program. The group holds meetings where the women talk about subjects like personal finance and developing a career, and there is a social hour. Vivian Nixon says society in general is happiest when the women do not go back to jail. But she says her greatest hope is that members of the fellowship are setting high goals for themselves and their children. We have more stories about education programs for people in or out of prison. You can find them, along with other reading and listening materials for learning English, at voaspecialenglish.com. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Persutti.